Okay, Dwight Lilly here with the rest of the story. I'm going to be attending a campaign event at Artesia here in Pahrump, Nevada for the Assembly seat number 36 that is currently held by Gregory Hafen II, who was appointed to the seat after the untimely death of Dennis Hof, who had actually won the seat but passed away in October of 2018 before the election had even been determined, before the votes had even been counted. And the commissioners from the counties representing District 36, that would be, I believe, White Pine, Clark County, and Nye County, got together and determined who would be filling the seat that Dennis Hof would have held. So what we have here in this year's campaign, because everybody's starting early, it seems like, a year from next month will be the election, but everybody's getting started early. Seems to be the way of things in this country right now. But what we will have had will have been a 4-year period, actually, before a person that was elected to the seat was actually going to be the incumbent running for office. Because really, a person that has been appointed, well, they can't really be considered the incumbent as far as the voters are concerned. Now, I want to bring up another point here, that I was doing some research, and 85% of the residents that have been moved in recent times, increasing our population in Clark County, Nye County, and so forth, are from Southern California. That is for down here in Southern Nevada. 85% are coming from Southern California. And Southern California is a very far left liberal state. So when you take that into consideration, since the last election, there has been an influx of probably a majority Democrat voters. And already Clark County is heavily pushing towards having a majority of registered voters that are the Democrat Party. They already have a plurality now, and I can only think that it would expand unless the Republican Party does an extremely good job of registering new voters and getting them out to vote. The issues is going to be what most people are going to be listening to. How did Greg Hafen do in the one term, legislative term, that he was seated at, which ended in June of this year, and what policies Dr. Bradley would be pushing for. Now, what I know about Dr. Bradley is he's very big on veterans and health care issues, and I assume that that will be a major part of his efforts if he's elected to the legislature. And that holds well for here in Pahrump, Nevada, where we have a large number of veterans that would be a voting bloc in itself. So this is going to be interesting. Then tomorrow night, I will try to be over at the same place. This is at Artesia's Community Center, because Greg Hafen II will be having his campaign event. So we basically have two events, one right after the other. So this is Dwight Lilly with the rest of the story, and I'll be back from the event center signing off.
Now, kind of talking about tonight, we in Las Vegas for years, I had created a program for chemical dependency and PTSD, and we were serving 5 different VA regions and have seen numerous people come through it. Almost every single person that had come through it had at least one suicide attempt. And so it's a very high-risk population. And our success rate for persons staying sober and moving on to the life they want has been astronomical. It's been really nice. And it's because we didn't focus on one of the pushes, and it sounds silly, but after I explain it, maybe I won't. I want to get rid of the D. I hate post-traumatic stress disorder. See, disorder implies that there's something wrong. But I would say that if anyone in here encountered the types of events that led to the trauma, that is a normal human reaction. So to cause a normal human reaction, a disorder, automatically implies that there's something wrong with the person. The reality is they have post-traumatic stress. They're having a normal human reaction to a traumatic event, and we never focused on it as a disorder or something wrong. Our focus was 100% you responded correctly and appropriately. Now your environment has changed, and it was all about reacclimating to a new environment and completely removing the focus off of something wrong with you, but rather there's something really right with you. People that suffer from PTSD have hypervigilance, and they have great situational awareness. With this comes a lot of, trauma and stress and anxiety, all very normal physiological events in the body. So, but those are hard things to learn as a normal person. So the person that is suffering post-traumatic stress, they already have the hypervigilance. What they don't have is the ability to accommodate to the normal things. So in other words, if there was a big boom right now, people that had training would react to it appropriately and effectively. But when standing in line behind someone for 5 minutes looking for exact change, that person they want to choke. So it's like the big things they can deal with effectively, but the everyday little things they struggle with. So it's so much easier to learn the little things. So right off the bat, it was about there's nothing wrong with you. Everything about you is working. Now we just have to give you a new skill set. Don't lose the old skill set. That skill set that's kept you alive, keep that one. Let's give you a new one to go along with it. Everyone in here know how to ride a bike? Can you unlearn it? No, can't unlearn it. Once you know it, you know it. But you can make a choice to never ride a bike again. That being said, you always know how to ride a bike, but you can make a conscious choice to never ride a bike. And that's why it's understanding that this is always a part of you. That's okay, embrace it, because it's part of your survival mechanism. But you never have to engage it. You can learn, how to drive a car. You can take the bus, you can walk. We can learn other forms of travel. And that's what our program was based on. So what we're doing here, the second that Daniel starts upping the workload, and he's been out there every single day, we're getting it ready right now and furnished, because we're going to start doing out there support groups weekly for veterans and first responders, and it will be a free service that we're doing. And then for other more complicated things, we have in place all the resources to address it, whether it be pain issues, mental health, addiction, or psych issues. And we're going to do it for persons that don't have the ability to, or that it's not covered at a very extremely discounted rate. So that's what we're in the midst of doing, and we're very excited about doing it. And I just wanted to thank Daniel, because when he and I were talking about this once, and he just went out and bought the house. He goes, okay, I got the place. So here we are. So thank you, Daniel. A lot of people talk about it. Doing it's another thing. That's one of those other things. Oh, help our vets, help our vets, help our vets. Went out and did something to help our vets and our first responders. So I'm very pleased to announce it. You ready?
To your Social Security cards, to all these other things. And I've told him over and over again. Now, he's asked me, can you come in one day a week and see if you can help teach him? I said, what is the teacher there for? I go, what am I? I said, so I'm supposed to help you teach? Well, so you're going to cut money here so that way you can put it elsewhere? I'm dumbfounded by this, because I don't think when I went through it, when you went through school, everybody had to learn certain things. There was the 4 basics, the math, reading, writing, and they don't want to go back to it. And it doesn't fit their agenda, because it's too easy for them to test on this Common Core. And if they get a certain percentage, they still want them to succeed. And I told them, so now you've got, say, a kid that's 40%, kid is 60%, and you got a kid at 80%. Their testing system wants that person 80 to go up higher. And if they don't, they're showing them that they're failing.
They said you had a question, so is it, am I in favor of Common Core?
Yes.
No.
Sorry.
No, I'm saying, no, because I think we need, if you don't think the basics are needed, let's go back in time and see if the astronauts on Apollo 13 would agree. You know, when their computers went down and they needed the basic fundamentals. You know, I don't think people realize how important the fundamentals and basics are because we've gotten so accustomed to doing it other ways. How many of you have misplaced your phone and just about went into panic? You know we're like 48 hours, and I'm being generous, from complete chaos? I mean, literally, if we lost our electrical grid and water systems and everything shut down, I give it 2 days at most before there'd be absolute chaos. That means we're basically hanging on every single day hoping that everything works, right? The reality is you got to understand the basics. Without the basic foundation, it's more difficult. You know, but I can always punch it in a calculator. What if they don't have a calculator? We need to expand our brain, and the only way we expand our brain is through these basic concepts. Yes?
I see on your brochure it says protecting water rights. Mm-hmm. Could you explain your position on that, what you intend to do about that?
Absolutely. Oh, so with the education thing, by the way, I just wanted to end with that real quick with education, and it goes into healthcare. We have a lot of entitlements. And one thing I want to just, again, the question wasn't asked, but I like taking stances on things that I don't have to when I'm not asked, but I'll do it anyway. I think that anyone receiving an entitlement should have to be mandatory urine testing. I believe that if you're receiving taxpayer money, the taxpayers have the right to know if it's going towards assisting or it's going towards drugs. Now, I don't mean that from a punitive stance. I mean it so we can identify and get true assistance. We have, my wife and I, my wife's a therapist, we have seen far too many people and, you know, they're living in a certain manner and the money's going to drugs. And we try to recover, we got HIPAA laws, 42 CFR, the federal code. There's all these things, you know, we have to care for our patient. The reality is we see a lot of this type of abuse. And what needs to happen is, and I'm not saying it to punish them, to help them. You got a family with 2 kids at home and the money that's supposed to be going towards those kids and it's going to methamphetamine in mom or dad or both. We need to address that issue. And the sooner we address the problem, the quicker we can do something about it. So now it's moving on to water. Meth and water do not mix. Okay. So the water issue. How do I say this one? Here in Nye County, in multiple parts of rural Nevada, you still get to a degree to live this American dream. You can buy property, you can have a well, you can put solar panels on your roof, and you can live as free as you possibly can without intrusion from others, to the best of our ability. Until we start having intrusion from the government. Just recently, now I fully believe the water crisis at current as it's being presented as a manufactured crisis. That's my personal belief. Now some of the things I've read, and this and that, I read some research, but I have not checked it to where I would actually quote it, because I didn't see it as being double-blinded and peer-reviewed, so until it does that, I don't quote it. But I've seen some research based on which that water is being diverted, that there's certain caverns and natural chasms under the earth that are preventing the water from getting into our valley, that we actually have a lot more water than the way it appears, and it's not being done so it can look as though there's a crisis beyond that, which there really is. Well, right now we're the state engineer, which is the appointed individual. Let me just say that no appointed individual should be making that decision. It should be up to the people. And I think there should be an elected panel that actually is empowered to make those decisions over the basin for their area. Silly me, I think we the people are smart enough to self-regulate and actually do without if we need to. If we determine it's in our own best interest, we will do so. Don't need the almighty government or state engineer. By the way, when they said that we should stop wasting, and here's how. When the government says this is how you don't waste, I suggest you run the other way. Right? This is how you save money. Oh, thank you. I think I'll take someone else's advice. But no appointed official should be making this decision. We had several water bills come up, and some of them could have been more friendly, and some that were voted on weren't as friendly as they could have been. And there is right now, it has the appearance that the personal private wells owner rights are looking to be taken away to once again be taken over by the regulatory bodies such as the utility companies and things of that nature. It's just how it appears to me. And by no appointed person should be making this decision. That would include the current unelected appointee for District 36. Yes.
Historically, water in the state of Nevada has been considered owned by the people of Nevada. And water rights were given out and allocated by the state for the benefit of the people of Nevada. That's why beneficial use was required. The caveat was Nevada Rights statute allowed 2 acre-feet for domestic wells and domestic wells only. They have no water rights. It was allocated through the statute that they were allowed to pump 2 acre-feet for the domestic wells. Our Nevada legislature in this last time that they were sitting overturned all the law for over 200 years and decreased water allocated to domestic wells to a ½ an acre foot without touching any of the water rights that have been allocated by the state. Basin 162, which is Pahrump, has approximately 60,000 acre feet of water rights that have been allocated or allowed by the state. That's not actual water. That's just on a paper from the state allowing them to pump up to 60,000 acre feet. There's approximately 11,000 domestic parcels that could have a domestic well. If they pumped the allocation that was allowed to them previously, that would be approximately 22,000 acre feet of water. You put those two together, that's 80,000 acre feet of water allocated, if you will, to this basin. Of that, only approximately 20,000, maybe 25,000 acre feet is considered recharge, snow and water from rain. So this is a manufactured shortage, and it's a manufactured shortage by the state engineer and the state allocating water that doesn't exist.
And wasn't it just made to a ½ acre now?
It used to be 2 acre feet. When they changed the revised statute with AB 95, they cut it down to a ½ an acre foot without purchasing additional water rights.
Right.
If you want more than ½ an acre foot, you can't do that, but you have to acquire water rights. These water rights are being bought and sold as if they were real property. And they're basically only water that's being held in trust by individuals or by corporations for the benefit of the people of the state. So when it's bought and sold, the people of the state don't receive any benefit from it at all.
Well, I agree. I think it's manufactured. And so we have to look at motivation for manufacturing, right? So you can't just do it unless there's a reason. My belief is, again, that as our state went from a nice dark red to a kind of a nice dark purple, and it turned a little violet, and now it's getting blue like the Pacific Ocean. With more people in control, less government in control. Utility companies and regulation is a way of keeping people in line. It's also, I don't know, did anyone here get the survey in the last census where they also sent out, they wanted to know like how many TVs you had and how many, there was all these questions. At that time, I remember calling and asking, do I have to answer these questions? I was like, no, you don't have to, but we put them on there. Because most people think you have to answer them. Why do you need to know all this stuff? Why do you need to know how many TVs I have? I don't know about you, but I like my privacy. And everyone has that right to privacy. And this whole thing here, with what you do with your water, as long as you are in compliance, as you said, it goes back a couple hundred years, why all of a sudden now? And if we want to really stop the problem, why are we starting to put in more homes that are starting to look like Las Vegas does, you know, side to side. I mean, if there really is this major problem, why is there more tract homes coming in? Yes.
If the real issue was to try and bring that basin 162 into balance with the amount of water from recharge, what they should have done instead of cutting the domestic allocation by 3/4, they should have cut it by 3/4 across the board, including water rights. If they have 60,000 acre feet and they cut that by 3/4, that brings it down to about 20. If they take the 22,000 acre feet that would have been allocated for domestic and cut that by 3/4, it would have brought down to about 5. That 25,000 acre feet of water is more in tune with regards to what the recharge is, and we wouldn't have the problem we have now. But the burden is they're putting it all on domestic.
Yeah, when you had said the thing, unless you buy more water rights, it's kind of funny. It reminds me of a joke, actually, that whole thing. It's, you know, doctor says to you, you got 6 months to live and your bill is this. You say, well, I can't afford that in 6 months. Okay, I'll give you 6 months more to live. You know, how does buying more water rights make the water shortage problem any better? Why is it even available to buy more water rights, to use more water if there's a crisis to begin with? When you say you can't buy more water rights, you can't buy any, you can't use your water, it's a crisis, must stop, we're in inherent danger right now, imminent danger. No, it's all ploy. Why is it manufactured? Well, in my personal opinion and belief, it's to set it up as first you have to have a crisis, and then once you have a crisis, you have a fix. And the fix is to have a utility company come in and regulate it and take care of it. And all of your water rights mean nothing, and everyone is on the same grid. Let me just put it this way. If my last name is Kilowatt, do you think I'm going to be pro-electrical bills? Oh, you betcha I will. If my last name is Kilowatt, and I have a utility company, Kilowatt Utility, and you want to build a system on your property that generates its own power, oh, I'm going to talk about how that tower is hurting our birds, and how it's a nuisance visually, and how it's creating this damage to the community. It's reducing values of property, all in the name of one thing. I want you buying electricity from me. Because my name's Amy Kilowatt. My name's Dave, and I want it to be water.
Exactly. Can I say something?
Is it a question or a statement?
A statement.
Go ahead.
I'm retired from that company was founded just to serve the subdivisions for their houses. They don't seek to go out and get new customers.
You know that?
Yes, I do. I worked there for like over 10 years.
Are you Haven's campaign manager?
No, yes, I am. But
Oh.
that is no, I live in Artesia.
Thank you for your unbiased opinion.
It's not. I moved here because I wanted to live in a community, because I came from the Midwest, with water and sewer service. I like the fact that I don't have to test my well. I like the fact that they clean the water and they put it back into the ground in drinking water quality. That has nothing to do with being biased or anything.
I'm glad you like that.
Okay, what about it risk? But yes, that's what makes it go back to water. Yeah, it's polluting. I will tell you something. 2 of the 4 Haitians that live in
Well, I'll tell you what, his thing is tomorrow night, so feel free to go talk in his behalf tomorrow. And give me the courtesy tonight of just respecting me.
I'm not disrespecting you, sir.
No, I'm asking you to respect. You gave your statement, so I'm asking you. Now, I said my opinion is.
Okay.
So, First Amendment
Yeah, you can say
provides me with that.
I'm just being honest.
Well,
I have a statement.
I appreciate your unbiased, honest opinion.
I have a statement.
Yes.
I've been following the legislature, and there's a list of 10 to 12 bills that were passed, and the majority of them are in favor of utility companies in Nevada, especially in District 36. Our assemblyman voted for some of them that would benefit utilities, and against some of them that would not benefit utilities. So,
We have a whole list of them that we'll be
Yes.
posting
Yes.
online. So
Yes.
we're not sitting there having an argument like this. We'll just factually
So if there's not a future plan to have utilities in charge of the water via the state engineer's office, those kinds of votes would not be an issue. But there are rumors of these kinds of plans for the future for the 3 water utilities to actually take control of the water, and they would benefit by it. They would make millions by
And they
it.
own a lot of the water rights too.
But that's what I'm talking about.
They already own a lot of the water rights.
That's true.
So they're a perfect position. Would you acknowledge that?
They're not out seeking customers. I've worked there a long time.
Well, can you
They
tell me
have
who's going to win the
future
Super
plans to
Bowl
get
now?
those
Because you
customers.
seem to have good insight.
One of the things that they have, and I know this for a fact, is that pot farm that they've got up on Hafen Ranch there, that's being done, it's been tied in to our water system, has been tied in to our sewer system. So now what's going to happen is when they start producing, because they're going to be baking, they're going to be doing other things, they're going to have a pit that's supposed to be like an oil pit, like they have at some of the restaurants, and go in there and they're supposed to be testing it. Okay, if they're putting that water back in the ground from the sewer plant that's right down here at the end, and if they're putting it in our sewer system and it's going through, what about all those chemicals?
Go to the sewer system and see how it's on.
I know how it operates, and I know you can smell it too.
Let's do this. Let's move on. But let's do this. Ask his campaign manager, pass him a message. I would debate him publicly. Robin Port from the PVP is here. She could come up with the questions on bias. Dan O'Donnell, publicly, any date, any time, unprepared, unknowing the questions on issues, on all of our issues, and just please let him know that.
This is not the time to do it.
So, because what we need to do is come out from hiding and talk publicly about our positions. Yes.
I just want to make a very brief comment. Of the things I said, all of them were true. But the problem is they're not picking up on the fact that it's all being generated and caused problems by the legislature and by the government at the state level. If they were to change the laws and treat everybody equitably, it would be more appropriate. Nobody in this valley has broken the law regarding water, whether it be a utility or whether it be a domestic piece of property. But when they change the laws and affect only one part of the people using a particular resource, then they affect everybody else, and it needs to be done in a fair and equitable manner. It's not being done that way.
Well, that's, I agree. And I'm not suggesting anyone's breaking the law. I'm suggesting that people are using the law for their own personal benefit.
Well, that's what we all do.
And they're voting on it because they're in office.
So, the tax, if you look at AB 443 and 445, please look it up. You'll see that I believe 5 or 6 Republicans voted in favor of it. 36 representatives won. Gave the Democrats 2 bipartisan victories on tax bills. AB 539, which is essentially to make government bigger by taking the civil defense of the county out of the district attorney's office. It has been said that all pertinent people were contacted and spoken to about it, and they all thought it was a good idea. I actually just asked our district attorney, he thought this was a good idea. He goes, I wasn't asked. So, you know, we just need to, I want to keep government small. I want to keep more rights to people, and we need people to be in legislature that are going to do this. Yes.
I need to be early, but we have Joe Brzezinski, and he was the people's choice after Hof died for Assembly District 36, and he was our choice because we did not want the one that's been appointed in there for all these reasons. But Joe was the choice of the people, and we want to elect the next District 36 representative.
Thank you for that. Let's move into healthcare. For those of you that don't know it, this is a brain. Don't leave home without it. This is the brain, this is the brain stem, this is the hindbrain. Here is the midbrain. And this area right about in here is called the mesolimbic VTA system. This is where addiction takes place. It's right in here. Right in this simple area, mesolimbic VTA. We know this because on studies and research that are done on rodents, they also have the same type of limbic and reward system, and we can mimic behaviors based on this system. The nice thing about the midbrain is it's unconscious, lacks any free will, and has no thought of future consequences. It's the first area of the brain that's developed in utero. So it's also the survival brain. So when you think about how this works, kind of cool how God designed it, isn't it? The first area of the brain that's formed is the area of the brain that keeps you alive. It's kind of a coincidence, isn't it, how that works? So we know right now that addiction takes place in the area of the brain where basic fundamental survival is. That's important, because if you don't understand that, it's hard to understand what to do about it. So up here is the frontal cerebral cortex, frontal cortex. That is high brain power, abstract thought, conscious reasoning, willpower, choices, all those things. So when a person is told use more willpower and do not use, the question that's always presented when you're dealing with someone that has a defect in this area of the brain, and which is why addiction is considered a disease, by the way. It's considered a disease because in 1956, the AMA categorized it as one, as a chronic progressive illness with a predictable outcome. It then was reconfirmed by the World Health Organization. Now, regardless of what you think of Obamacare, the Affordable Health Care Act, for the point I'm making, it is mentioned in it numerous times, addiction and the word disease. This was passed by the legislative branch of government. It was signed by the executive branch of government and deemed constitutional by the judicial branch of government, which means the United States government says it's a disease. The National Institute of Health says it's one. The American Society of Addiction Medicine says it's one. Center for Disease Control says it's one. So now's a good time for anyone that disagrees with it being a diseased army. Every single relevant agency, organization that knows anything about illness states it's a disease. So, when we're dealing with disease, that means that something normal is now abnormal. It's the nature of the disease, right? I mean, if you've ever had an autoimmune disorder, well, white blood cells are designed for our very survival. You know, right now, someone in here might be having probably all of us, a white blood cell response, doing something at a level of the unconscious that we're not even aware of, because it's saving our life, it's doing its job. However, if your own white blood cells attack self, you develop things like an autoimmune disorder. That's where you get rheumatoid arthritis, ulcerative colitis, diverticulitis, you can go on and on and on. So what is normal has become abnormal, nature of disease. So in this area of the brain, which is for basic fundamental survival, it has three things that it wants to do. One is to eat, one is to defend, and one is for intimate relationships that turn ultimately sexual. Back in the day, we used to call this food, fight, never mind. Okay, thank you. So, now, has anyone in here ever been starving? Just starving. I mean, your stomach's growling, you're starving. That's a craving. Your body is having a physiological craving. Okay, that's what a craving is. A deeply embedded internal desire manifested in external compulsion. So it's something deep inside of me that's forcing me or causing me to do a behavior, even if I don't necessarily want to do it. And if you think the craving's easy to overcome, next time you're on a diet, just don't eat. Just don't eat. I want to lose 10 pounds. Okay, how do I lose 10 pounds? Don't eat. You know what makes it difficult? That deeply embedded internal desire that manifests